Welcome back, guys, to the Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve. Well, last episode we took on a new testimony by Enoch Drebber about what happened in the cemetery 10 years earlier, as he began to cast aspersions on what had been documented, claiming he never saw the professor. However, after another penalty, we pulled through by revealing that the article's details shared info that could only have been divulged if Enoch had seen it firsthand, further displacing him at the scene by presenting the camera he was wearing at the time, splattered with blood. Having decided that Drebber is protecting Courtney Sithe for fear of her incriminating him, we now figure out the motive on Drebber's part for killing Odie Asman. But why? What was his motive then? Your time is up, my learned friend. I say you have one last chance before the jury lose their patience with this charade. Let's see if you can back up your heady proposal, shall we? How would you explain why this engineer would throw all caution to the wind and threaten his own country? At this point, I'm not prepared to listen to more of this outlandish conjecture without proof. So, counsel, present your evidence. Alright, who exactly was Mr. Asman to Drebber? There's a connection there that no one's seen yet. And I'm going to have to present two pieces of evidence to show what it is. Yes, my lord. The evidence to establish a motive and explains why the witness wanted the victim dead is right here. Well, we've already kind of said it, haven't we? Two pieces of evidence, you say, that tie together. Odie Asman? Odie Asman, the signature, right? Two pieces of evidence. Two pieces with that signature on it.
Take that!
It's this newspaper article, my lord. That was written 10 years ago, and every detail has been examined already. What can it possibly tell us, really? That drivel should never have been written. It's typical gutter-press nonsense that means nothing. Yes, on its own, it isn't particularly significant. However, when considered alongside another piece of evidence, it will completely explain your motive for wanting Mr. Asman dead. What other evidence? Counsel, you'll present your supplementary evidence without delay. The evidence which, when cross-referenced with the newspaper article, establishes a motive for the deed. Signatures.
Take that!
It's this contract, my lord. Mr. Drebber, this is the contract you signed with Mr. Asman. Yes, that's right. The very document, in fact. That proves I had no reason to kill the man. No, I'm afraid not. What? There's something very significant that this newspaper article and the contract have in common. Really? And it's that common link that shows very clearly why you were determined to kill Mr. Odie Asman. It seems the defense has uncovered something the rest of us have missed. So, my learned friend, point out what these two pieces of evidence have in common. Where exactly is the link between this newspaper article and the contract?
Take that!
What these two pieces of evidence have in common is the signature. A signature? The signature on the illustration that accompanies the 10-year-old article and the signature on the contract belong to the same person. What? Ah! As the court has heard, this illustration was drawn 10 years ago by the newspaper reporter who found Mr. Drebber and interviewed him about his ordeal. If you look closely, the reporter's signature can be seen in the bottom right corner of the drawing. And if you look at the contract here, which was signed between the witness and the victim last year, you can clearly see Mr. Asman's signature at the bottom. Let me see now. Good lord, yes, they're identical. In short, the journalist who drew the illustration and wrote the article published about Mr. Drebber 10 years ago was the victim of this case, Mr. Odie Asman.
Objection!
But explain to the court why. Why would that constitute a motive for the witness to murder Asman? Well, if you think back, you'll remember that Mr. Drebber talked about that article in his testimony.
Grave robbing, you say?
Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative.
That is quite beyond the pale. You would invite divine retribution, sir?
Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with the bad grace to identify me unambiguously, I might add. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article. At the time, you were a student of the University of London who dreamt of becoming a scientist. However, this single newspaper article changed your entire life.
So Mr. Asman used to be a newspaper journalist, did he?
He did, my lord. In fact, it's a widely held belief that Asman managed to position himself at the heart of his criminal network, thanks to the many dubious connections he made during his time as a reporter. So you had to give up on your dream and leave university. You lost everything. Eventually, you found yourself working in the field of science, but only in the shadows. And all because of that article, written by Mr. Asman. Enough! Stop this endless drivel about my life.
What? Explain yourself, Mr. Drebber.
Yes, it's true. I had to leave the university as a result of that article. But it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. What do you mean? Almost every student of science in the faculty was too poor to actually conduct any research, but they struggled on with their hypothesis anyway. We all did, only to have them taken by vultures. Sooner or later, you knew your ideas would be stolen and patented by some wretch or other, after all.
Oh, good gracious!
Making a name for yourself as a scientist in a climate like that was a miracle only a select few geniuses could ever hope to achieve. Personally, I wasn't one of those geniuses, so it was hardly a wrench. Being forced out of the university because of Lowgate was the best thing that could have happened to me.
Objection!
Mr. Drebber, do you genuinely believe that? Of course I do. Who's better placed to know whether or not I possess a talent for science than me? I'm sorry to say that your words don't ring true at all.
How dare you!
And I have evidence to prove it. How are you in a position to say anything about me? I don't know you from Adam. Fine, if you think you have evidence, go ahead. Show it. What could you possibly have to disprove the idea that I was happy to leave university because I lacked talent? Because you didn't lack talent. You won an award. There's a little metal plaque here. Look. Fostering burgeoning talent for the future of scientific discovery. It seems rather ironic, doesn't it? But clearly Mr. Drebber really was a very talented scientist. Clearly, I'm amazed I didn't even examine that before.
Take
Yes?
that!
Do you remember this, Mr. Drebber? We found it at your workshop. Yeah, this is a Mr. Drebber. Do you remember this, Mr. Drebber? Would be a better way of saying it. They called the award the Mr. Drebber.
Is that
A Royal Society trophy for excellence in science.
what exactly is this trophy, Council?
It's the greatest honor that can be bestowed on a young scientist, my lord. There is no higher accolade. It recognizes emerging talent and promises a bright future.
Oh, good gracious!
Your prospects for the future were excellent, weren't they, Mr. Drebber? Because even then, you were a genius in your field. But you lost everything. You had no more future. Your talents would go to waste. All as a result of this one newspaper article. I don't know when you realized who Mr. Asman was, But when it dawned on you that he was the same journalist who 10 years ago ruined your life, it's abundantly clear that you had no intention of forgiving the man. The truth is... Finally, he's going to fold. Fine. Clearly this has run its course now. What? I admit it. All of it. What? What are you doing? It's exactly as the Japanese man said. I was coerced into going along with this man's plot to murder the victim, on the condition that he kept my dirty secret from 10 years ago. No.
Good Lord!
Dr. Sithe, do you realize what you're saying, woman? It's all true. That day, when I arrived at the Crystal Tower and saw the birdcage, my heart nearly stopped beating. That memory from a decade ago that I'd done my best to bury deep inside myself. It was the professor again, staring me in the face. And then, before I had a chance to react, I noticed something else. There was a note tucked inside the model's jacket. Dr. Sithe, you will go along with my plan. From someone who knows the truth about what really happened that night 10 years ago. All the instructions were there in the note. Every detail was meticulously written out. I had no choice but to do what it said. I made the necessary alterations to the scene and fabricated the autopsy report as instructed. There was really no other choice. It had to be done to protect the judiciary. I can only apologize now. Why on earth would you buckle now? Well, there's no point trying to hide it anymore, is there? I would have done anything to stop it coming out, even collaborate in a murder. But the great lie about that execution 10 years ago has been exposed. Whatever happens, I'm finished. So then, Mr. Drebber, what do you say to that? Your accomplice has admitted everything. Surely it goes without saying. You admit your part in it too, then? I admit nothing! At all! What? Have you forgotten that the kinesis machine was ripped to shreds by an explosion? Short of me admitting to a crime, there's really no possible way for you to prove I did anything wrong. No! Order! Whatever this man says, I admit everything. He threatened to expose my secret, so I went along with his plan. And Lord Van Zieks? Yes. I hope you'll accept my apologies. What happens next is in your hands, of course.
I have heard more than enough now. I hereby present the final findings of this court.
What?
This trial is not the proper forum in which to pursue the alleged wrongdoings of Mr. Drebber. The defendant is Professor Albert Harebrain.
Very true. It had slipped my mind. Isn't he one of your closest friends?
As the court has heard, Dr. Sithe has admitted to the allegations brought by the defense. thereby absolving the defendant of any possible guilt.
You mean...
At the present time, it is the conclusion of this court that the defendant was not involved in any wrongdoing. Does the prosecution have any objection?
None, my lord. Oh, congratulations, Mr. Nalahodo. You've proven Professor Hairbrain's innocence.
Without further ado then, the adjudication. Unless the prosecution or defense have any other matters to discuss.
Oh. I so totally do. Don't I? I don't know. This doesn't feel quite right. Why did Dr. Sithe suddenly admit to it like that? Is everything alright, Mr. Nalahodo? Like you said before, the way the trial is set to end now, the judge will certainly deliver a verdict of not guilty. But is that really what we want? What the defense should be pushing for now is further testimony, because to be honest, the judge is right when he says, like, this isn't a forum and maybe this is a separate case and something separate to do. The Hairbrain is innocent, that's obvious. But if we've learned anything from any Ace Attorney game, we don't stop at anything short of the absolute coherent truth. Or, you know, as coherent as it can be.
Objection!
Defense objects to the trial ending at this time, my lord.
I beg your pardon?
We demand one final testimony.
What? You two realize I'm about to adjudicate in favor of your client, I presume?
What are you playing at now, my Nipponese friend? Why would you want to obstruct the conclusion of the trial at this point? No defense lawyer in his right mind would do that. Mr. Nalahodo, what exactly are you thinking? The truth. The whole truth. And a way to bring it all out into the open. Right! Yes, in hindsight. Ah yes, one word of warning before I go. If in the course of the trial this afternoon you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bone. To the bitter end, you understand? Do not falter, whatever may come to pass. He's so manipulating me. For the right time for everything to come out, isn't he? I am being manipulated by Sholmes the whole way. I'm sure Mr. Sholmes knew. He must have deduced that this would happen. Yes, I'm here in court to advocate for my clients and secure an acquittal. Obviously. But that's not all. I believe that I have a duty to the court to pursue the whole truth of the case until every last detail is laid bare. And that is why the defense calls for further testimony from Dr. Sithe. Testimony from me? About what? About the nature of your collaboration with Mr. Enoch Drebber. In case it's escaped your attention, I've already admitted to everything I did. The whole truth has already been revealed. So stop wasting everyone's time. As his lordship made very plain, your client will get the acquittal you wanted for him. There's simply no point protracting this business further with another tedious cross-examination.
Objection!
Pray forgive my careless handling of that hallowed bottle. I slipped. That's what you call it? Yeah, sure.
What is your objection, Lord Van Zeeks?
And the prosecution also calls for supplementary testimony from the witness. Don't be stupid! If there is more to this case than has yet come to light, then I will join my learned friend in pursuing the facts until the bitter end. You'll what? Lord Van Zieks!
This is most irregular, to say the least. However, as the prosecution also calls for it, I will uphold the request. Dr. Sithe, you will testify for the court. Explain the full extent of your involvement in the murder apparently committed by Mr. Drebber.
Very well. We actually got more testimony. The Waxwork plot. It all began at the scene when I saw the waxwork of the note tucked inside its jacket. The actual body of the victim, as indicated in the note's instructions, was beneath the experimentation stage. The body had to be arranged in certain ways to implicate the defendant, which was my job. I enlisted the help of the entire forensic investigation team to dress the scene appropriately. What? Everyone's corrupt, kinda. The truth about the execution 10 years ago was a state secret of the highest level. I had to protect it. So I was right. The stage and the machine were all specially designed for the deception. So it seems, and all meticulously prepared. You did well to see through it. You're a very shrewd boy. So kind of you to say. And what about this autopsy report then? All I did was record the location of the body as being in the Crystal Tower instead of under the stage. That's all. That's a terrible corruption. Only my team were aware of the deceit, and then only under my explicit instructions. Nobody else at Scotland Yard knew anything about it, I assure you.
We must be thankful for small mercies, I suppose. Well, I believe that testimony has clarified everything. There's no particular need for a cross-examination, I would say.
No, I disagree. I can't shake the feeling that something's wrong. Just look at that expression on Dr. Sithe's face. It's the defense's right to cross-examine any witness following testimony. What is it about you Japanese that makes you also doggedly persistent?
Very well. If you so desire, counsel, proceed with the cross-examination.
Yes, my lord. And so we come to it. The Waxwork plot. What is wrong with it? It all began at the scene when I saw the waxwork of the note tucked inside his jacket.
Hold it!
From what you described before, it sounds like the note was anonymous. Did you have any idea of who was behind it? There are very few people in the know about what really happened 10 years ago to start with. But anyway, I'd never heard of this engineer. So no, I had no idea. I see Madame Tuspel was left to stand. Yet despite not knowing who was behind the plan, you went along with it. I had no choice. Protecting the professor's secret was my only concern. The horse has bolted now, and the stable door will never shut again. The Scotland Yard's reputation will be immeasurably damaged as a result of all of this. Yes, thank you, Lord Van Zieks. I'm well aware of that.
So, as I understand it, what you found in the birdcage was the waxwork model. Where then was the victim's body?
The actual body of the victim, as indicated in the note's instructions, was beneath the experimentation stage.
Hold it!
So you knew about the special construction of the stage used to carry out the trick then? It was quite obvious what had happened with the victim and the waxwork. And you switched the two over, didn't you? In other words, you recorded the victim's body as having been discovered in the Crystal Tower, and the waxwork? I wrapped it up and sent it by carriage to the specified address at the specified time. And why were you given such directions? Presumably so it could be recovered by Drebber and returned to Madame Tuspel's. I see, and then you put the birdcage back on the experimentation stage. Yes, although someone obviously made a mistake about which cage should go where. I thought I'd made it perfectly clear to the team, but still. I suppose you were focused on the victim's body, that being a more important detail. The body had to be arranged in certain ways to implicate the defendant, which was my job.
Hold it!
When you say arranged, I presume you mean with this. Yes, the instructions in the engineer's note said something along the lines of, fabricate some evidence to make it clear that Hairbrain alone could have killed Asman. So, you mean that was your doing? I fetched Hairbrain's ridiculous screwdriver from the stage and took it with me alone to the abyss under the stage where the birdcage had fallen.
Alone, Doctor?
Oh. You weren't alone. I didn't feel it would be appropriate to involve anybody else in that particular part of the deception, despite having your team do everything else. There was a void under the stage where I found the birdcage lying in the dirt. I approached it, leaned down, and slowly opened it up. Then, I took the screwdriver in both hands and plunged it into the man's chest. And then you noted that in your fake autopsy report as a fictitious cause of death. Exactly. So, the actual cause of death was the trauma resulting from the 30-foot drop.
My word.
What is it, Miss Susato? Something about Dr. Sithe's last statement is playing on my mind, that's all. Yes, mine too. Dr. Sithe. There's really no need to shout. I can hear you perfectly well. The defense calls for you to add what you just said to your formal testimony. Oh? Which part? What I wanted to supplement her testimony with is the real cause of death or what she did to the victim. I was expecting this to be around the fact that she was alone. Ah. So what we got here? Because we're going to have to, think about this a little bit. Time of death on my birthday. Well, before I was born. Cause of death, hemorrhage of a wound to the chest that pierced the heart, inflicted by a sharp implement. That doesn't say that that's fictitious. Additional observations. A broken vertebrae most likely resulting from impact after a sudden fall from considerable height. Definitely done it the opposite way round here. But of course that would be to fix it. What else am I looking at, if anything, here? I wish we could go back and see, what we just saw as an image. Even though that's not necessarily true. I don't know which of the two we want here. There's not, a big blood tornado being splurted out anywhere by the look of it. There is blood, definitely. I guess why would you do it there? Of course, that's the picture of the death is of it having been moved. I have no clue how those glasses stayed on. Seems to be a bruise on the head side. I don't even know from the glasses. It's all so confusing. I don't even know. A choice between the real cause of death. But the real cause of death is there. It's one of the two. So let's ask what she did to the victim. How you stabbed Mr. Asman in the chest. That part. Of course, he'd be in the cage.